In today's video, my buddy TallyWho Art is going to show us how to paint this easy to do in beautiful red Nebula Sea. Now, this is all done in acrylic paint, and if you need to know what colors and tools we used, did you a favor, and I put that all down in the video description below. The first step we want to do is make sure we tone our canvas black. We're going to be using a black matte gesso here. You can use any cheap gesso, it'll be fine, or if you only have black acrylic, that will work as well. Make sure you give yourself ample time for it to dry. Around 15 to 30 minutes should be perfect. Now we can move on to outlining our nebula cluster. Use whatever brush you feel most comfortable with. A filbert or any medium brush works perfect here. And use some white titanium paint and start outlining the nebula cluster of where you think all the nebula / cloudy opaque parts would be. Now, I use the word cloud because that's actually what you're gonna kind of be dropping in here. Use a nice whisking motion and be loose and free with your strokes. Just like a nebula in clouds, they're all kind of free, so have a little bit of fun here, but don't overdo it. Again, we're just outlining our nebula cluster. Now that you got your outline, let's go ahead and fill in that nebula cluster. We're gonna be filling in the body. This is kind of where light catches certain parts and makes it feel like there's denser pockets here that's really gonna stand out. I recommend cleaning off your paintbrush that you were just using for your outline and start pulling and blending that color down and in. Think like a cloud here. Have some dense parts, have some transparent spots, and then have some parts that just blend out to nothing. This will really add to the effect later on when we start adding color on top of it. Oh, and don't get carried away here. Remember, the only way our nebula is going to stand out is if we have that deep, rich black. So don't get carried away and outline and fill everything with white. That black is what makes our nebula stand out. To build up our colors and layers within our red Nebula Sea, we're going to use a technique called glazing. Now, if you don't know what glazing is, the simplest way I can describe it is if you take paint right out of the tube, for example, our red paint, we want to introduce water into it. Yeah, we're going to water down our paint. And when we apply this watered down mixture on top of our white nebula cluster, it allows us to have more control over the casting of colors and where it goes. Now from here, we just want to fill in the sections of where we think the color would be. For a quick, easy hack, either in the beginning of this video or at the end of this video, screen grab the final result so you can see what we did. And essentially all you have to do is add this red mixture to where you think red should be. And if you want to bolden more of that red color, just add another layer on top of it. If you want to make it darker, you just add more red layers on top of it until you have this beautiful blending and casting of colors. Now this step right here will take you a little while. So feel free to pause the video and have fun and follow the screen grab that you did, because this is going to take you a while to get the transition of colors and how you want them to create that beautiful red nebula cluster and crackle effect that you want in there. Once you have all your red glazed layers in, let's complement that red with a beautiful purple. You're actually going to do the same technique with your purple. Add a little bit of water to it so that way you thin it down and apply that to our darker sections where it can transfer from the red to the purple to the black. This is going to add a beautiful effect. If you want, feel free to throw purple in certain little spots because it's really going to help create a beautiful color contrast for your red Nebula Sea. And of course, if you want a darker purple, all you have to do is just add more of these glazing purple layers on top of the purple section where you're adding, but make sure you blend them in thoroughly for an awesome effect. Okay, from here, you should have a basic visual understanding of how your red Nebula Sea should be outlined, plus where the pockets of color for your red and purple are. And it should be way easier to visualize. Now from here, you just have to build up multiple layers of how you want the color to be, adding different mixture glazing layers of different densities of that water and paint to where it needs to be, and the different colors from red to purple. And you can even mix a little bit. But essentially from here, just start building up the layers of how you want them. In my mind and in Tally's mind, the easiest way to do it is work from light to dark, which basically means one glazing layer to multiple glazing layers, because you're gonna be working from a lighter shade of casting of color to a darker shading casting of color, because you're gonna have multiple layers in between, building up to a more opaque look and style. That'll be easier for you. Like I said, you can go over this multiple times with the same glazing technique. Wild cutting in here real quick. I know we're talking about acrylic paint today, but if you're interested in trying oil painting, I have an awesome and beautiful downloadable PDF that shows you what to buy that's budget friendly, but more importantly, shows you what to avoid so you don't waste your money and can start off on the right foot with oil painting. If you're interested in that downloadable packet, you can go down in the video description below and click on the link. Now, back to our tutorial. Let's enhance our nebula cluster, and to do this, we're just gonna have more dense or opaque patches where the light gets trapped or bounce off in certain areas. And to do this, you just gotta take paint right out of the tube. Whether it be red or purple, you pick and choose what parts you want to have dense patches in your spacescape, if you will. For the example here, we're just gonna use red. Take your filbert brush, dip it into the paint, and just add some light dense pockets there, and remember to blend them in to the nebula cluster so it looks like it's a natural transition. Let's enhance that white crackle in the center. Let's start with the highlights that are coming out from it. Where our light source is, it's cascading light out onto our nebula cluster. So we're gonna use a white glazing layer, essentially white titanium paint with a little bit of water mixed in there using a script liner brush. Wherever you think the light is hitting the crowns of the nebula cluster, go ahead and drop in a line that outlines it, and then you can fade it down with a light brush, a filbert, a 1-inch brush, a fan brush, whatever you have control over. Remember to fade them more and more as you get further and further away from the light source. For the light source itself, since we've gone over it with numerous glazing layers of red and purple, let's enhance it by adding straight white titanium paint on it. Just use a little bit of stippling and dabbing, and remember to blend it out, but don't lose that beautiful jagged crackle shape that's in there. But you can add as many white layers as you want. Just remember, the more you add, the more sharp and contrasting it's going to be. Now that we have an enhanced center, you can now have a better visualization of how the light is actually coming out from that center. So take our script liner brush with our white glazing layer again. You can maybe add a little more paint into it to thicken it up a tiny bit. You can go where you think the light is hitting it the most to make real strong specular highlights. This is really gonna make your nebula cluster stand out and have some defined shape to it. All right, time to have some fun and splatter some paint and make some distant stars. This is actually really fun, and all you need is a toothbrush, the bristle end. We're gonna dip that into our white glazing layer. You want a thin white paint here. And all you gotta do is stand over your canvas with the toothbrush and take your thumb or finger and start pushing it against the bristles and let them flick onto the canvas. Now, the more you stay in one spot, the more dense and cluster of distant stars you're gonna have. So I recommend going across the entire canvas and then standing back and seeing what you want. Now, this is gonna be hard to see on camera here, so I'm gonna take a couple of pictures so you can see what it actually looks like up close. So that way the light doesn't blow out anything and you can actually see the effect that it has. But don't get carried away. Now, if you don't like stars in certain spots, the best part about this, since it's a white glazing layer, you can take a paper towel and wipe away the parts you don't like. Now, once you put in your distant stars, I recommend standing back for about 5-10 minutes. Let things dry and tacky up a little bit so that way you don't wipe away anything in case your wrist or forearm touches the canvas. Now, we get to put in our star enhanced effects. At least that's what I'm calling it because that's all I could think of at the top of my head, which essentially is just stars that are closer that have that beautiful star-like filter effect where it's kind of going out in a star shape. The word of today is apparently stars. And all you gotta do is just paint up and down little cross or plus symbols and blend them out gingerly. Put as many as you want. I recommend using a script liner brush here so that way you have a lot more control. Go slow. You can use glazing layers if you want, so that way you can add a nice little distant glow or halo effect around your star. But this is where you get to have a little bit of fun. Now you can always add more or less of different glazing layers and colors, distant stars, star effects, nebula crackles, and lighting effects. It's your nebula after all. Have fun with this tutorial. Now I personally believe this is an intermediate tutorial because glazing layers do take a lot of practice, but the good news is it's extremely forgiving. You don't like what you did, just wipe it away and then start all over and you can build what you want, which makes it super fun and rewarding. If you're looking for the best beginner nebula, hey, we already did that on this channel. Gonna put it over to my side where you can check it out. Special shout out to my buddy TallyWho for helping out on this one, and I will catch you all later. Take care, and of course, peace.